Unlock your hidden self. The creative path to deeper self-discovery and meaningful connections. Picture this. You're standing before a mirror, but instead of seeing your reflection, you glimpse into the depths of who you truly are. What would you discover? What patterns, blind spots, and untapped potential might emerge from the shadows of your subconscious? The journey of self-understanding isn't just about navel-mitis gazing or endless self-mitis analysis. It's about developing the emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills that transform how we connect with others and navigate our relationships. And one of the most powerful tools for this transformation: creative writing. Through guided journaling and creative prompts, we can bypass our usual mental defenses and tap into insights that traditional self-mitis reflection often misses. Think of it as archaeology for the soul mitis, each prompt helping you excavate layers of understanding you never knew existed. Let me share a story that illustrates just how profound this journey can be. The weight of being misunderstood. 5-year-old Talon's voice trembled as he looked up at his grandmother in the department store parking lot. "I'm sorry, I know I'm being annoying," he whispered, his small frame still shaking from the meltdown that had just cut their shopping trip short. His grandmother's response was immediate and gentle. No, you're not doing anything wrong, sweetheart." Her voice carried that special warmth that only grandparents seem to master, the kind that makes children feel safe, even in their most chaotic moments. This scene would become emblematic of Talon's childhood. Caught between a cold, distant mother, consumed by her corporate executive role, and a largely absent father following their divorce, Talon found refuge in his grandparents' unconditional love. They saw him as perfect, incapable of wrongdoing, showering him with praise and attention that his parents couldn't provide. "How about we go get some ice cream?" his grandmother suggested as they reached her car. "Okay." Talon's excitement was instant, his distress forgotten. Over vanilla scoops and chocolate sauce, she painted a picture of his uniqueness, his importance, his special place in the world. Talon absorbed every word, not realizing these moments were creating a complex internal narrative, one that would shape his relationships for decades to come. The making of a Patton elementary school brought new challenges. While other children adapted to classroom routines and playground dynamics, Talon moved through his days like someone carrying invisible weight. He spoke little, withdrew often, and seemed perpetually overwhelmed by what others navigated with ease. During one particularly difficult day, as his classmates rushed toward recess, Talon lingered. He gathered his belongings with theatrical slowness, stealing glances at Mr. Graff from the corner of his eye. The performance worked perfectly. "Everything okay, buddy?" Mr. Graff asked, concern evident in his voice. Talon's response was masterful in its innocence. "Yeah, why? Am I being a problem?" The teacher's reaction was swift and apologetic. "No, of course not. You're not causing any problems at all. You're doing great. Just let me know if there's anything I can do to help make you feel more comfortable." "I don't know, I'm just overwhelmed. I guess I'm different from the other kids," Talon said, tilting his head downward in a gesture that seemed to carry the weight of the world. In that moment, Talon genuinely believed he alone felt the difficulty of navigating this new environment. The idea that other children might also struggle, might also feel overwhelmed, simply didn't occur to him. "Of course you're different," Mr. Graff replied warmly, "but that's what makes you special. Don't ever forget that. Why don't you stay inside with me today? We can play on the computer until you're ready to join the others outside." And so began a pattern that would echo through Talon's life, his distress becoming everyone else's priority, his needs taking center stage, his struggles becoming the focal point of every interaction. The paradox of connection. Years passed, and Talon found himself in 8th grade, experiencing his first real relationship with a girl named Stephanie. For 2 months, things felt different, lighter, more hopeful. Then tragedy struck. A devastating car accident left Stephanie's father paralyzed and her family in financial ruin. Stephanie herself suffered life-changing injuries that required weeks of hospitalization. Eventually, financial pressures forced her family to relocate, ending her relationship with Talon. Of course that happens to me in my first relationship, Talon confided to his friend Maggie over lunch, his voice heavy with familiar self-pity. Maggie, dealing with her own recent romantic rejection, saw an opportunity for connection. "Do you still talk to her?" she asked gently. "No, she pretty much abandoned me completely," Talon replied, his tone dripping with resentment. What followed became a template for Talon's friendships. Maggie spent lunch after lunch, listening to his complaints about Stephanie, his parents, his classes, his anxiety, and his deep, impenetrable sadness that no one could possibly understand. He regularly warned her that he would ruin her lunch with his problems, then proceeded to do exactly that, all while remaining oblivious to whatever challenges Maggie might be facing. Self-awareness, it turned out, didn't automatically translate to self-improvement. The comfortable cage of misery, throughout high school and college, this pattern repeated with clockwork precision. Friends would be drawn to Talon's apparent vulnerability, his upfront acknowledgement of his flaws. "Oh, trust me, I'm miserable too. Don't worry, you seem like a good guy to me," a college classmate named Christian said, with a laugh, when Talon warned him about his own misery. What Christian initially took as self-deprecating humor soon revealed itself as something far more exhausting. Long, one-sided conversations became the norm. Talon's problems dominating every interaction, while he skillfully asked just enough questions about others to keep them engaged, without actually having to focus on their needs. The irony was striking. While Talon constantly complained about being alone, he received more positive attention and affirmation than most people ever do. He always seemed to need it most, so he always got it. People rarely criticized him, because he criticized himself so thoroughly. They rarely confronted his negative behaviors, because he seemed too fragile to handle additional stress. In essence, everything went exactly as Talon wanted it to, minus attention, compliments, and freedom from having to deal with other people's problems, or even the ones he caused. Yet paradoxically, this very success in getting his needs met, drove him deeper into isolation and self-hatred. The mirror moment years later, as a high school teacher living alone, Talon found himself at his mother's Thanksgiving gathering, a family he'd grown largely estranged from. His mother had remarried, and had 2 more children, 17-year-old Maria, and 14-year-old Tom. Feeling overwhelmed by the social dynamics inside, Talon stepped out for a cigarette break. As he stood hidden beside the garage, Maria appeared around the corner, vape in hand. "You shouldn't smoke," she said with deadpan delivery, taking a hit from her own device. "It's bad for you." Talon pointed at her vape, eyebrow raised. "I'm joking," Maria clarified, leaning against the garage wall. "Mom's insane about this stuff. She says it will kill me." I said, "Good, give me lung disease. Let's get this whole thing over with." "Same," Talon replied uncertainly. "Sooner the better." "Oh yeah?" Maria's response carried an edge. "So you're still like that, huh? Great, I guess you don't just grow out of this stuff." "Like what?" "Self-loathing narcissist." "I'm definitely not a narcissist," Talon protested. "I basically hate myself." "Right," Maria said simply. "So if you hate yourself, and you're always thinking about yourself, who exactly are you focused on?" The question hung in the air like smoke. "I mean, yourself," Maria continued without waiting for his answer. "Whether you like yourself too much, or hate yourself too much, either way you're focused on yourself too much. Narcissist." She shrugged as if accepting defeat in a battle she'd fought before. "Yeah, but I've always cared about other people, and tried to be." "Stop. You don't care about trying to be better. You're what, 30? Hating yourself doesn't make you a better person, or make you care more about other people. In fact, I think it makes you worse. You act like you're less than, but you still always put yourself first, and worse, you weaponize your misery against others. That's what my therapist told me, at least." "What does she know though, right?" Maria took another hit from her vape, her laugh hollow. Talon stood there, cigarette halfway to his mouth, as a flood of thoughts and emotions washed over him. The conversation annoyed him, but it also stirred something deeper, memories, potential realizations about himself and his patterns. He looked at Maria's face, and for perhaps the first time in years, really saw someone else. He saw the sadness and isolation she carried, the help she was longing for, the conversation she needed to have. "Does your therapist say you can change?" he asked quietly. "Yeah, she says there's hope. Just takes effort. Who's got time for that?" Talon looked at his cigarette, then at Maria's face again. He threw the cigarette to the ground, and stomped it out. The path forward, creative self-discovery. This moment of recognition, seeing himself clearly, through Maria's eyes, represents the beginning of real self-understanding. But how do we cultivate this kind of insight, without waiting for someone brave enough to hold up an honest mirror? The answer lies in creative exploration of our inner landscape. Through guided journaling and creative writing prompts, we can develop the same perspective, shifting abilities that Maria offered Talon, but in a safe, structured way. One of the most powerful aspects of creative self-montage exploration is how it bypasses our usual mental defenses. When we write from different perspectives, create fictional scenarios, or explore what-if situations, we often stumble upon truths about ourselves that direct self-montage analysis misses. Consider this transformative exercise. Write a first-person story from the perspective of someone who knows you well, describing a time they spent with you. This simple prompt can be revolutionary because it forces you to step outside your own narrative and see yourself as others might. You might discover patterns you never noticed, behaviors you didn't realize you exhibited, or impacts you didn't know you were having. The beauty of this approach is that it feels like play rather than painful self-montage examination. Your creative mind engages differently than your analytical mind, often revealing insights that feel both surprising and deeply true. Beyond self-montage awareness to transformation, but creative self-montage discovery goes beyond just understanding ourselves. It actively develops our empathy and interpersonal skills. When we practice writing from others' perspectives, we strengthen our ability to truly see and understand the people in our lives. We begin to recognize that everyone is fighting battles we know nothing about. Everyone has needs that deserve attention. Everyone has stories worth hearing. This shift from self-montage focus to genuine otherness awareness transforms our relationships. Instead of unconsciously making every interaction about our needs, we develop the capacity to show up fully for others. Instead of weaponizing our struggles, we learn to share our humanity in ways that create connection rather than obligation. Your journey starts now. The path to deeper self-montage understanding and stronger relationships isn't about perfection, it's about curiosity, creativity, and the courage to see ourselves clearly. Through creative writing prompts and guided exploration, you can begin to uncover the patterns that shape your relationships, the blind spots that limit your connections, and the untapped potential that awaits your discovery. Whether you're someone who relates to Talon's story, or you're simply curious about unlocking deeper levels of self-montage awareness, creative journaling offers a powerful pathway forward. It's not about becoming someone different, it's about becoming more fully, authentically yourself, and learning to show up for others with the same presence and care you'd want them to show you. The mirror is waiting. The question is, are you ready to look?